Thank you, Branden. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. So I am constantly thinking about posthumanism these days, and so I wanted to ask you about this. So for a place to sort of start here, if I can add a little bit of context for the listeners, I feel as though your art is so rich, and I also watched your movie, which I really appreciated your movie as well. And I'm going to leave links for everybody to take a look at your art and your movie, and we're going to talk about your art a little bit in our talk today as well. And I feel as though there's so much that we could talk about that it's also possible. I was thinking about this sort of architecture that can be used to organize the conversation about the possible ways to discuss your art. I don't know if that's. I think these conversations always end up like this, right? I mean, these are complicated conversations. But so having said all of that, I was thinking that, and it took me a while before this dawned on me, but I think it's possible that we could take your movie, we could take your art, and we could approach it, for example, from a theological point of view. We could approach it from a cosmological point of view, or we could approach it from a psychological point of view. I think that then also, there's some other ways to sort of blend those categories as well. But I was thinking that initially that might be a good way to organize some of the questions and comments that your art provoked for me. And so one of the things that really came to mind was this question of posthumanism. And so forgive me, I'm trying to get some traction here. Let me see if I can put something on the table and see what you think about it. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Okay. So I had this vision in listening to your movie and in looking at your art and in our exchanges, in which I think it's very much like your movie, in which if you kind of envision cosmologically, or from almost you could say from a God's eye point of view, this sort of flowing, becoming reality, and that what you are doing, in a sense, is, and this is with the binding and the shifting and the flowing and these types of concepts, that what you are doing is you are providing a way to describe the higher order organization of that flow. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Okay. And so then if we approach it from the cosmological point of view, then we could say that there's a sense in which you are providing a description of reality. Okay, yep. and I really liked that because I thought it reminded me of Gilles Deleuze. It reminded me of so many of these philosophers, Heraclitus even. But then if we look at it from a psychological point of view, and this was one of the ways that it really struck me as. I mean, I think it's brilliant, period, but it struck me as super brilliant from this point of view as well, was that from a psychological point of view, the description is as if you are describing the experience of your pencil as it is encountering the canvas or the paper. Is that also fair?
Yeah, I would say that's also pretty fair. Yeah, the point of the pencil being directed to it's the things just kind of compiling on top of the point, really, of the pencil. That is, yeah. Exactly.
Excellent. And so one of the things that I was really hoping to get into, I've got some philosophical questions here to ask you, but I really wanted to hear about like the phenomenology of your process, right? And so what I mean by that is something like, so let's go back to what you just said. When you make that that point, right? When you make that point on the paper, what are you experiencing?
So with that, I guess for a little bit of background, the whenever I establish the starting point, especially in Metaforma, for example, or I guess even in Desire too, kind of, but um, the starting point, the initial assumptions were of using my own observation, or at least my own faculty of observation, and noticing that at any given point, I'm focusing on one thing at a time. Some people might be able to focus on multiple things at once. I'm not such a person, but it's yeah, the singular thing I kind of abstracted out into just into just a point, and from there I decide to um, see how the point could vary in some way or indeed change over time, and the resulting structures that I came up with would be, well, the result of that. Yeah.
Yeah, nice, nice. So is that something? So help me see if I'm getting this correctly. So you have like a regulative idea. Would you say that you're approaching? So okay. So if I can blend these ideas together. So if you are this kind of in relation to the paper, if you are this kind of godlike figure that is influencing the world that is being formed on this paper, are you bringing an idea to it, or are you making material contact and then it's just sort of flowing?
Hmm. For that, I find it hard to separate the two. I think
Interesting.
they are one and the same. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So when I ask you because I'm trying to, so I'm wondering if are you, I'm trying to get at this phenomenology here. Are you hearing something, or are you envisioning something as this is happening? Is this a sort of progressive revelation? And if so, can you talk about what the experience of that is like?
Yeah. So whenever okay, well, I'll answer the first question. Yes, I am
Okay, okay,
envisioning something. I am definitely envisioning something. And the the result would be, well, I guess I can say this. Whenever I envision something, I try to get to the root of it first, and then I try to see how it unfolds sequentially. And Desire and Metaforma both, and just about any of my projects really, are me just unfolding some kind of world in a sequential fashion as I have the vision happen to me, in a sense,
okay.
so that people can kind of experience what I did when I came up with the idea. Yeah.
Excellent,
Or
excellent. That's
when,
awesome.
I guess more accurately, when the idea happened to me, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to get at, right? Yeah,
Yep.
I would love to know what that experience is like. Because I guess in a sense, it's almost like I'm asking if we can push the metaforma even into that space, right? Where is some communication coming to you that is influencing the drawing? Is some communication coming to you? And if so, what is the experience of that like?
If there is communication, it communicates explicitly in the way that it unfolds. Like, I
Mhm,
guess it's a
mhm.
curious thing. It's a lot of people, or at least from what I'm able to tell, have this internal language of their own, and that is usually the way that they think and feel and speak and the like. Um, I guess if we want to get a little more, I guess, out there, I'll um, I'll say that yeah, there might be some form of communication happening. I am not immediately constantly aware of it, but it's like there are, I guess, hints that it could be the case. It's like when I was about 5 years old, I got a bit of a vision of numbers and folders, and I could be a little bit more descriptive about that, but I'm just being quick. But it's Metaforma itself was kind of a culmination of that kind of vision, which was interesting.
That's outstanding. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really outstanding. Yeah, I know. I mean, I have this feeling. So I cannot draw very well at all. But my dad, his drawing, he didn't draw the same kinds of things that you draw. But and forgive me if my vocabulary here is not doing this justice, this process justice. But he was able to draw, and I always wondered about his process as well. I feel as though, the artist, that there is a kind of communication or connection with something else, a kind of revelation that's taking place. And I felt like in some ways when I read your book Metaforma, I felt like in some ways that you were describing that, to us or for us, right? This idea of when the pencil meets the pad and the flow.
Yeah. That's yeah, I guess in a way I was trying to communicate that exact same thing. Yes.
Okay. And I'm wondering, so let me ask you some of these questions. Is that I feel like I've just been spending so much time thinking about posthumanism, but I wonder. So when I say posthumanism, I think that from a favorable point of view, or from a favorable angle here, we could say something like, if we think about your description of becoming, right? If we think about your description of, and if in any way, shape, or form I refer to it in a way that doesn't do it justice, feel free to correct me. But so if we think about that as what is most primordial, if we think about that as what is the ground of everything else, then my thought is something like, it would be post-human, but not post-human in a negative way or anything like that, but post-human in a way to say something like that. To say human is to sell ourselves short. That it's so much more dynamic, right? Yeah, that it's so much more dynamic and complicated and intricate than that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, initially, I don't have much to say about it. It's like, yeah, okay. The idea of posthumanism makes sense. It's like humans will always just sort of. I guess the thing is with the word human, it'll always shift and change as humans move through time, as it were. Because technology and the like will always change, or humans will constantly make things to suit them and fit them and resolve problems that are immediate to them, or the broader community of sorts. And technology begets more technology, of course, and that will inherently alter how the human being will or it would be orientated toward the newer and higher forms of that technology. Yeah. So, humans will constantly just kind of not necessarily bury themselves, but just keep stacking on top of themselves, stacking on top of their own sort of definition of what they are, as time goes on. And yeah, that's that can go on forever. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a technology thing, of course. Posthumanism could also happen through symbolic culture and the like, and that can carry on forever. Definitely. Yep.
Would you say that, but it can't reach that point of desire, though, right? That it can't reach the origin of desire. I mean, would it be fair to say that everything may be stacked upon it, but that origin of desire is still going to be the ground?
Yeah, I would say so. The so recently I've developed this idea of what the ground might be, and or at least I guess I've always had that idea of what the ground might be, but it's adapted, it's changed as it does like every other year. But
That's excellent.
The current idea that I have right now is the origin is indefinite. It can't really be reached. Indeed, you just kind of keep reaching further and further back or outwards, I guess you could say, from the center. To try and create the image a little bit better, though, it's I currently imagine that you can envision most things as a kind of definitive terminal end. It's like, so that would just be what the point is, right? Just a definitive center. For the center to be made, there has to be some sort of force converging upon that center from all directions, and that convergence doesn't have a beginning, but it definitively has an end. It's kind of like kind of how p-adic numbers work. You have you can determine the end of a really, really long chain of numbers, but it's like a number one at the end of a really long string of numbers, and then all the way off to the left side of it, there's the beginning, but you don't quite know what it is, and that's just kind of how that works. But of course, in this diagram here, you don't know what the beginning actually is, so it just kind of keeps going on and on. It's like it's an inverted infinite number of sorts.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's kind of how I envision it now, with everything that is in the universe right now, a finite thing as the terminal end, and everything else that is beyond that is infinite, and is creating that finite thing, or giving context to it at least. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's excellent, Branden. So when you just said that to me, I think I finally understood something that I'd been encountering in your writing and in the movie that I hadn't fully appreciated before. And if I could try to formulate a question and to ask you about it. Would you go so far as to say then that therefore any use of logic from where we are, or from the point, because of this inability to track to the origin, it's that even logic can't overcome that, and so therefore ultimately we're left with mythology?
In a way, yeah, I could see that. Right now, I'm thinking that the things that can be thought of in logic, it's like with this idea, I think you have pretty much the extent of what can be conceived. And it's like, if you try to conceive anything outside of, that infinite expanse, as it were, you're just going to be adding either to the finite or to the infinite, and it's not really going to change anything. So I think that logic and reason is able to fully apprehend what all of reality is. It's just, you're not going to be able to perceive all of it. That's the main difference there, I suppose. It's like you can use your imagination and your cognitive faculties to ascertain what things may or may not be, or what is possible and what is not possible, and you can divide and separate all that other stuff out. But would you be left with mythology? Yeah, maybe. But mythology is also a product of logic and reason, in a sense, or at least it's you have to use it when coming up with mythology.
Excellent. That's heavy. That's really heavy. I appreciate that. So let me try to reformulate that a little bit. So what I'm picking up when I'm reading the book and listening to the movie, and maybe I'm getting it wrong, but let me see what you think about this. But I felt as though it reminded me of Derrida, actually, in an interesting way, that there was a resistance to identifying an origin, right? That it was like anytime you could say, this is what the origin is, or this is what the origin looks like, that you would remind us that that's just a point, so to speak, in our mind, and that therefore we're right back in that game, right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So So I'm wondering then, I'm all for that game, but I'm wondering, like, so are we able to, like, I'm trying to, if nothing else, I'm trying to articulate the different ways to relate to that difference, the different ways to, like, so we could think about this logically, or we could try to trace back the forces, as you say, right? And I guess, on the one hand, so my question would be something like, on the one hand, is there any value to one over the other? I guess that is my question. There it is. That's my question. Yeah.
Is there any value between?
So I guess, so would you say, recognizing that the origin is elusive, right? Would you say that there is more value in tracing the forces, as you had described them a moment ago, like an infinite, an inverse infinity? I think is that how you said it?
Yeah.
Is there value? Is there more value in tracing the forces than there is in using logic to articulate the logically necessary structure?
I get you. Okay. They both have their benefits, obviously, but what is there one better than the other? Yeah, I guess it depends on the goals. If you're tracing back forces, that tends to lend more credence to what I imagine what physicists tend to do, or I guess historians. Most scientists tend to be historians, and if you're trying to understand phenomenon, because it's just trying to understand causality in that sense. Yeah. Versus the other one. Yeah, no, I think it very much depends on the goals, on what the individual wants. Yeah.
So to say that it depends on the goals, well, I think we got it now. I think we got it. I'm so excited about that. Forgive me, because this was I mean, it still is. It's just such a mystery, and just beautiful. It's beautiful. But so when you say it depends upon what you want, I think we could translate that into something like it depends upon which one of those architectonic categories we're dealing with, whether we're talking about cosmology or theology or psychology or some blend of these categories. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Wow, that's excellent. That's excellent. That's really excellent. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Branden. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. So I asked you so many questions where I didn't know if any of these, so just for some context, we, Branden and I, we were scheduled to talk back in October, and some events came up in my life, and I've been just kind of scrambling to try to get everything back on track. I'm still not back on track. As you can see, it's January now, and Branden and I are just sitting down. But so all of this information has been stretched over all of this time. So now just kept building and compiling, right? But when you are, I was watching the YouTube videos that you put together, and I think that they are excellent. And it's just a little bit too much information for me to track from memory. So forgive me, I have to look. So this idea of body, act, and bond, right? And what I really was looking for was sort and flush.
Flush and gain, I think it was.
And gain, there it is. Yes, it is gain. That's right. You're right. Okay. So when I see those terms, that sounds to me like it's like really heavy metaphysics, and that it's like I had mentioned to you that it sounds like you're working out an ontology. Maybe we could call it a structural ontology, but that you're working out an ontology like a heavy metaphysics here. And so can you say a little bit more about those terms? Because those seem to be your fundamental. I feel like the word category probably is not sufficient here, but your fundamental categories, right, or your fundamental terms.
Yeah. So when so that series is A Forma, I think it was. It came after Metaforma, and it was the idea there was to try and refine or at least get to the heart of what I was primarily wanting to say in Metaforma, but couldn't quite do it yet because I was just kind of in the moment while
Okay.
making that one. But the yeah, Sort, Gain, and Flush. The So to speak about it from where I stand now, yeah, sort, gain, and flush. Those are all functions or actions or basic verbs that I see in the world in the most basic sense. So sorting is distinguishment, I think it was, separating things out, and it's about identifiers or making things distinct and identifiable. Um, Gain is what it coincides with sort now. Um, and I attributed it to oh, I can't quite remember at this point
Yeah,
because
that's okay.
the categories kind of merge together and all of that. But yeah, I guess I can move on to flush. Flush is just the I think game was more like sort of an input function or just taking things in. Is kind of what an identity does or how it maintains its own identity. The basic verb of keeping itself or of retaining itself.
Okay.
It's kind of like the beginning of its metabolism of sorts in an abstract sort of way.
That's
And flush
outstanding.
is yeah, and flush is just the putting out of removing things that are not of its identity and filtering it back out into the world that might have things to do with it of sorts. So yeah, it overall those three things tend to or seem to create this metabolic process, a metaphysical metabolic process of sorts. But
Yeah, no, that's great.
yeah,
That's great. Yeah, yeah, I really like that description. So would you say this made me immediately made me think of Aristotle? It made me think of like and you tell me if this is fair, but would you say that in a sense, then you are so you had mentioned verbs and this idea of that you are looking for a language that is abstract enough to describe change in time at the level of change. Does that make okay. That's
yeah,
fair? Yeah, that's
yep.
great. That's great. I mean that's like heavy ancient Greek philosopher stuff, right? Yeah, I really appreciated that. I was like, yeah, I mean, I forgive me, I feel like this is it's just super duper high level stuff. It's super duper. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So, okay. So I really wanted to, I watched the Desire movie, and then I went back and I sort of looked at pieces of it again. And it was while I was doing that then it hit me. I was like, this reminds me of a kind of, and I realized that when I say this, then I'm moving into the theological or the cosmological or some blending of the two, but points of view, so to speak, on this. But it reminded me of a creation myth, right? But I would think that you would say something like it's not necessarily a creation myth because it could just be like a right here and now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, yeah, I that was definitely a yeah, I it's like the only parts of it that I would at the time when I made it would have considered a creation myth was like literally just the first like 6 minutes or so of it. Everything
Sure.
else was like,
Sure.
yeah, everything else is like happening as we speak right now, always. Because I also still currently believe it's like, yeah, creation is, it happens all the time. It doesn't really stop, you
Right.
know.
Right. Um, so this made me think of okay. So tell me if this resonates with you, and if you feel motivated to elaborate on this as well, please do. But so it made me think of. I know some people don't like the word Gnostic, right? But it did kind of make me think of what Carl Jung referred to as a kind of Gnostic creation myth, and really, I think it's coming out of Plato's Timaeus. But this idea that there is I mean, really, I guess I'm just going to go ahead and fire it up. But so that there's a God, and that this God is the God of love. Essentially, this God is a force of love, or the force of love, and that as the force of love gets close to the material dimension, and that's like the spirit going over the waters, that as the God gets close to the material dimension, it sees its reflection in the material dimension. And I'm hoping that I can see the gears are turning. I love that. But so I'm thinking that, of course, that from a psychological point of view, that this is you with the pencil and the paper. Right. And that so as the God is seeing its reflection in the material dimension, the God gets closer and closer to the material dimension. And according to this creation myth, the God makes contact with the material dimension. At the point at which the God makes contact with the material dimension, the God recognizes the material dimension as its other and pulls back from it. But as the God pulls back from it, there's this, you could say, this sort of the water falling off of the God's face, and that the water falling off of the God's face is, in a sense, the material individuation of that God, and this sense in which, each of these material individuals is created in the material reflection in the image of this God of love. So that therefore the creation is a creation out of love. It is motivated by the force of love, but at the same time, it does sort of create a world that is somewhat unexpected. I think that's a part of this. That's a part of this creation myth, that there's something, that it's almost as if the God didn't fully predict the encounter with the material dimension. And so I don't know if that how that relates to this idea of when your pencil hits the paper, and when you're drawing, that you are guided by this regulative idea to some extent, but then when you begin to draw, if that then somehow that feedback that you're getting from the material dimension.
Yeah, that maps onto it pretty well, actually. I don't think I have much to comment on there.
Okay.
It's, more or less spot on.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I kept feeling as though I was like, I can hear it, but I can't put it into words yet. And I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, so let me take a look at some of these questions that I put together for you. So this I feel like this is a question that many people will appreciate this question, but I think that you may feel as though this question isn't really a very relevant question, but I want to ask it because it'll help make everything a little bit more communicable. If I were to ask you something like, are there actionable steps that you might formulate in relation to metaforma? Does that question make any sense, or is that question relevant? How might you respond to that question?
Actionable steps in relation to metaforma. I feel like I wanted to have instructions in metaforma. I did, well, beyond the instructions of how to make a world, perhaps, but
interesting.
It's for the human being what to do. I think, probably in the psychology section, that's probably where I wanted to have steps or instructions. And maybe they're like kind of slightly in there, but it's buried in its language,
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
But the actionable steps, it's like if I were to get more detailed in Metaforma when I was writing it, yeah, there would have probably been some pretty clear steps. Well, not clear, but steps in general in its language as to how to get yourself out of certain psychological hangups. But yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Okay. So would you say something like that the psychological hangups then are an inability to maintain contact with the flow?
yeah, something like it. Actually, no, definitively something like that. Yes,
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
definitively. Yep. It's it's a it. What can I really say at this? Um, it's a if I wanted to say that that there was something that I wanted that section to do for a goal. Yeah, I suppose it would be to try and ensure that the person is really just stepping into what makes them powerful creatively. And yeah, that I guess that would be the simplest way to put it. Exactly. Yep.
That's
To
outstanding.
minimize fear, creative fear, and to step into creative power, because those are the two, like the one of the dichotomies in all of Metaforma, power and fear being diametrically opposed. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That is outstanding. I appreciate that, Brandon. Thank you. Let's see. Would you be willing to kind of talk us through the specific artworks with us? I mean, maybe just kind of, tell us what you see when you see it now, what you were experiencing during the creation process, whatever you would like to say about it. But I had a few images. Let me see if I can pull them up also here.
Pull them up too. Yep.
Awesome.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Let's see if we can.
Excellent.
Well, I'll naturally go in order here, but
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
All right, cool. So let's see. Catalog 10. This image was maybe the seventh one. I don't know. I forget my own naming scheme here, but this one, I think it was titled Want. It was I guess I should preface this by saying that all of these illustrations will they all kind of reflect where my philosophy was at the time, and me trying to puzzle out some of the concepts, or at least to depict them visually. And that's also kind of what these what well in this first one, they're just markings. It was a language. It kind of deconstructed as the images developed a little bit more. But yes, so the first one, it was titled Want, and it was this just a point in this hazy background, this field of sorts, clouds perhaps, and they're all sort of giving that thing space.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I saw coming down from the top of the image. I mean, is that this is kind of made me think of a creation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if that was explicit for you as well. And what's interesting is that to me is that the color from a distance, when I look at this as an icon, for example, from a distance, the background almost looks like hands, like hands being held up like this. And so it was almost as though there was some sort of a cora or a container, and that then inside into this container was some sort of divine spark coming in. But it was interesting to me that the divine spark, based on color, the divine spark was related to the language. So I guess it's almost to try to get this into something that is more like a more mainstream kind of way of talking about it would be to say something like that the creation spark in this is along the lines of a logos, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's and to make another connection, I suppose it would be to display that the logos is kind of this unconscious utterance of sorts, and that doesn't have a clear structure to it. It just sort of happened. It's like you can trace that it clearly did happen, right? But it's borderline incomprehensible, but only borderline.
Wow, that's outstanding. So, I mean, that makes me think that that's the direction So when people were talking about the unconscious, instead of talking about like this personal unconscious that's all tied up with an id, this idea rather of like, it makes perfect sense what you just said. And I don't know that I've really meditated on this much, is that of course that the logos on the one hand is a language, of course, that if it's a language, there's a kind of structure to it. But on the other hand, there's also an ineffability to it. And I like the way you described it better, but it's this sort of amorphous, that it cannot be tied down. It cannot be identified. Wow, that's heavy. I really like that. What about this next one, this Catalog 9, Image 7? When I first saw this, it almost made me think it was pointing to a kind of spiritual force that could be seen out of the material happenings. Like, I didn't know if that's a building that's burning, or if that's like just smoke coming out of a chimney, but that somehow the culmination of these events, or this event, led to the revelation of the presence of something higher. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe you can help me out.
That's precisely what's going on. This one in particular was related to the more fictional aspects of this particular series of drawings. I was trying to come up with another fictional world that was like Desire, but retrace my steps a little bit. Well, not retrace, but to double back over them and see what I could do that could be better. And yeah, this is just more of a fictional piece. I didn't think too deeply into what it could mean, but
okay.
Yeah, you definitely nailed it. That's exactly what's going on. Something in the building occurred, and it did rouse the presence of something that cannot immediately be seen, but is definitely felt. Yes.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. When the language that's present here, it's almost like I kind of thought of it as like it's on the face of the spiritual entity that's being revealed or something. But that language, I am incapable of reading that language. Is that actually saying something specifically there?
This I believe it was before the language kind of eroded a little bit. There was structure here, but as of right now, I kind of can't remember exactly what it means.
Okay.
But
yeah,
it's it did mean something. I am toward the later end of this series, it tended to just mean what the title of the work was. So this in some way relates to the concept of consequences, because I think that's what this one was titled. But yeah.
What do you have to say about this next one? Catalog 8, Image 4?
Image 4, yeah. I think this one was called Decision. Yes, it's this one was inspired by some Twitter post of sorts. It was it has something to do, rather it elicited the idea of left and right brain, and so the right side of the person's head is like, kind of overflowing, or just having a massive intake of I guess energy or power of source of light, perhaps too, and all else is dark. Their left hand is about to fire outwards, and doesn't quite match up properly with how the hemispheres are connected to the arms and the hands, but I think it conveys the idea well enough. Then again, the person's right hand is still pointing downwards, and kind of has this sword-like quality to it, so maybe it does make some degree of sense. But they're pointing toward the camera, and are definitively choosing something on account of what is entering into their head.
Outstanding. Yeah, that's outstanding. And when I saw the sort of light that was emanating from the right hand, and then when you're looking at the left hand, it seems like the left hand is pointing directly at the observer. And so there's some sense in which it kind of implies that there is a light that then is emanating out of that left hand to the observer, just like it's emanating out of that right hand. Just really, really beautiful stuff, Branden. Outstanding.
Thank you.
And so this next one, let's see, Catalog 8, Image 3, and these things just ended up in this order. This is a random order. Yeah, I don't even know where to start. What do you think about this one? What do you have to say about this one?
This one was another inspired image from a Twitter post. The core of this one was just, rocketing off into a digital space or a virtual space of some kind, from a particular kind of device. Yeah, a device of some kind. It's
Outstanding.
kind of taking just a bit of a spin on how I tend to view technology, or how I would like to see technology be. To have it be a physical device, but also to have some sort of magical emanating power around it too. It's a personal aesthetic choice that I like to make.
That's outstanding. Outstanding. This difference between the sort of blending from the space in which the figure is standing into this digital or technical space, I mean, it strikes me so much as like a night, a night scene with like a starry sky or something like that, and almost looking through a telescope. Do you see this? I mean, you speak so much about the creation of worlds. So do you see this as a sort of the technological mediation of the creation of a world? And if
Yeah,
so, do you think that? I mean, do you take a stance on this one way or the other? That do you feel as though the technological access to these other worlds is somehow better or worse than the, I guess more primitive access to, like using the pencil to access imagination as opposed to using the goggles to access a virtual reality?
Digital versus analog of sorts.
Well said. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I Again, I see them as having their uses. It's like, look, well, yeah, I mean, you can see the detriments of both, definitely, in their own sort of way, and the detriments tend to function in more or less the same way too. Curiously, it's like you can get lost in an analog world that one writes for themselves, and you can definitely get lost in a digital one too. Is anyone better than the other? What one is, well, perhaps more interesting at the moment than the other, in a
Yeah.
cultural sense. Yeah, but no, it's hard for me to take a stand on either one being uh, worse or better than the other, because they both can achieve the exact same thing. Well, I say that the virtual world has more potential in what it can do for humanity. I think that much I can say.
Interesting.
Going back over to the analog, it's like, well, you wouldn't be able to get these technological wonders without myth, without creating imaginative stories and the like. Those had to have come first. I mean, they necessarily came first.
I really appreciate this, Brandon. This is one of the things I've been thinking about is the working on Deleuze, especially talking about the distinction between analog and digital. And, when you say this, it's very inspirational to me. So thank you for that. But also, from the point of view of the analog, so I'm thinking about, there was a time, of course, where some of the things that we are doing on a regular basis now would have seemed very much like sci-fi and just totally out of reach from the people in that analog world, so to speak, right? And so I just and I know that it seems like this is going away. It is going away, but because as you had said, it does seem like the digital can reproduce the analog. I mean, so it's just kind of over. But I just keep thinking that the people in that analog world had a sense of reality that, I mean, there just was something very beautiful about that sense of reality. And there was also just something so much more what's the word I'm looking for, right? Concrete or something so much more real. I mean,
It has weight to it,
oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, it does have weight to it. It does have weight to it. It's like if I have to figure out how to warm up this glass tube in order to right. Yeah, I mean, that's very different from I have to figure out how to plug this wire in. So yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot more engagement with the physical body in those in the more analog senses. Yeah, and I guess that does contribute to its heftiness and weight and physicality. Yeah.
So
Whereas with the digital, you press a button.
Right. Yeah, there it is. Right. Yeah. Do I want a warm glass tube that looks like that? Do I want a warm glass tube? Yeah. No, it's amazing. But so it's striking to me, and so this is my follow-up question for that would be something like, well, so does that imply to you? So forgive me, this is layered. I got two questions coming here, right? But so the first layer is does that imply to you that the digital was always sort of there, right? That the digital representation of that reality was always there, but the people in the analog world were not capable of computing it, or the people in the analog world were not capable of realizing it yet. So that's the first layer. But then the next layer of that question is, but then you would go so far as to say, but even the digital representation doesn't exhaust that primordial language.
Digital. So digital effectively always existing. I don't know. I can't say. It's I would say no. I wouldn't say that it has always existed. I would say that the analog gave rise to it. It sort of emerged, but obviously the possibility of it existing always existed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's yeah, no. Yeah, I don't think it's something that was always here. Which makes me think, well, that means that there could be other things that are, not necessarily virtual or analog, that could also be brought into being, other modalities, not modalities. I don't know if that's quite the right word I'm looking for, but other ways of interfacing with reality. Yeah.
Sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. So this next one made me think of Orpheus. And there's a painting. If I had, I would have loved to have maybe for the viewers, I will juxtapose a painting alongside this, if that's okay with you. But to show you the one that made me think of, off the top of my head, I think it's Waterhouse. But off the top of my head, I can't think of the artist presently. But so this is catalog 7, image 3, right? And there was something very, very beautiful about this, and I would love to hear your thoughts about what was going on when you were constructing this.
Yeah, this one, I found it straightforward when I was making it. It's just the feeling of being, I guess, in a way, downtrodden or dormant. Yeah, just probably a better word, dormant, and having a ray of light reaching down to awaken you, of being energized again, or about to being energized again, after perhaps even falling down into a slumber, or falling down into a deep sleep of sorts. Yeah.
Outstanding. Where on the canvas did you start with this? Do you remember?
I think, let me see. Yeah, no, I probably started somewhere along the middle, probably along the where the neck is and where the face is. That's probably where I started.
Okay. Okay. And so did you, going back to this regulative idea situation that we were talking about, so did you have this entire thing envisioned as you began in the middle of the canvas, or was it like you started in the middle of the canvas and then it's started to configure itself?
More so the first one, yes.
Okay.
Due to how I tend to be, I tend to not commit anything to paper until I have a clear enough vision. Anytime I try to be kind of extemporaneous with my creations, they tend to go nowhere, and it aggravates me.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so was this, so when you say there was a kind of creation of a fictional world or creation of fictional worlds, so would you say that this was somewhat narrative driven then? I mean, does this fit into a narrative that was emerging or applying to this fictional world that you were creating?
This one in particular, I don't think it was strongly connected, but let me see, catalog 7. I might have been past the point of making something that was yeah, I might have finished that the idea of it being, a about the fictional world of sorts. It might have gone or drifted further into philosophy before, of course, just sputtering out. But yeah, yeah.
That's really interesting, though. I appreciate that. Thank you. What about so I've got catalog 6, image 8, catalog 6, image 5. Do you want to speak to either one of those, or do you want to jump straight to catalog 5, image 9?
Let's see. Immediately, well, I can say that image 8 was more of just a bit of a practice sketch of sorts. This one, yeah, you can see the fictional elements are probably a little bit more apparent there. Just sort of an entity with it, a part of the clouds or of the clouds, just sort of a shepherding of sorts. As for what that really implies or means within the fictional world, I don't think I thought that far, but I found the shapes interesting. So
yeah, no, really, yeah. I thought, what was interesting also is that it does you did such a great job of conveying a kind of attitude in this one. I mean, it's just in a sense it's very minimalist, but at the same time the attitude just really jumps off the page. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and let's see, image 5. This one was interesting. This one is perhaps more, immediately related to the lore of the world. Just as for what this person is or what the face is, I'm not sure. Again, didn't think that far, but it is definitely more of a symbolic piece, I suppose. One eye being open, with holding or maybe even splaying out a kind of chaos, while the other one is bringing things in. Maybe that's kind of again a hint at dormancy of sleep going into the eye, and or perhaps even order going into the eye and chaos coming out in the other one. The fingerprint is a motif that I've used here and there just to kind of signify that there's definitive identity to a particular thing, or something being touched by a higher entity that is able, to leave those sort of impressions on a thing.
Oh, that's excellent. I didn't get that. I appreciate you sharing that. So two things, if I could ask about this. So one is that I don't know how I missed this, but I didn't see the eyelashes. So it's like I don't know how I missed this, but yeah. But so these are actually those are clearly eyes. I totally missed that. I was looking at the flourishes. I was so caught up in the flourishes. But so the fingerprint then is like the third eye, right? Yeah, that's outstanding. And so there's a strong motif of hemispheres running through this then. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Yeah.
I didn't, that's really awesome, Brandon. I didn't see that at first. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I think that I'm going to have to revisit these later and think about it in terms of hemispheres now too. Wow, that's really neat. Nice. So this one, this is one of my favorites. This one just really, I feel like I just can't stop looking at it. And that is Catalog 5, Image 9.
Uh-huh.
I just think this is so beautiful. There's so many things about it that I just think are beautiful. But I would love to hear your comments on it.
Yeah, it's this one is definitely more of a fictional one. It's yeah, calling forth something from immensely far away and bringing it into view, perhaps even bringing the the supposed infinite to, or some part of the infinite that is, yet to be revealed to the finite world, forward immediately. It's yeah, very curious.
Nice, nice. Let's see here. Catalog 5, Image 8.
Five, image 8. Yeah, this one feels like it's almost on the nose a little bit, but then again, the interpretation could be um, slightly varied, I suppose. But yeah, a futuristic-esque looking city being, well, um, conformed, or not really conformed, being conducted by these tendrils that cannot really be seen to the naked eye.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
outstanding.
who knows if the tendrils are good or bad? Who can say?
Right, right. What's also to me when I look at this, I feel like, oh, when I look at this, I'm like, oh, like this seems like it's just such a simple image or such a simple drawing, right? But it's just like this is light years beyond anything I could ever produce. You know what I mean? It's just like it really is excellent, and there's so much intricacy to it, despite the fact that on the surface of it, it does seem very like a very simple image. But yeah, no, it's beautiful. Excellent stuff. What do you think about so Catalog 5, Image 4?
Yeah, I think this one was titled Ghost. That one, yeah, I think that one's also kind of on the nose. It is indeed a ghost or an apparition of sorts. I think this one had more to do with the story or narrative.
Okay.
The exact degree of how much it was connected to it it was probably very minimal, but yeah,
Well,
that's exactly what it was.
awesome, awesome. Well, so the reason that this one jumped at me, I thought, was that this is essentially this person is in the pose of the thinker. And so I thought that this, and I think this idea of the ghost, or this idea of the spirit sort of visiting the thinker, and in a sense, communicating with the thinker or animating the thinker or something like that, is one of the reasons that it really jumped out and spoke to me. But in part of it, and perhaps it's been too long from your visiting of this fictional world, but in the narrative related to that fictional world, do you see the thinker as overcome by the spiritual influences, or is that something that over time the thinker matures and develops this ability to maintain its own presence in the presence of the spiritual influence? I don't know if any of those questions make any sense even, but
Yeah, I would more say, yeah, the second one. The second one would make more sense within the context of the world and how I would envision this character to be, given how I
okay.
drew them. Yeah, definitely. Um, the the original idea, I think, was that this one was the apparition of sorts. I did not make the connection that they might be also conducted by otherworldly spirits. That is way more interesting to me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the thinker pose, especially, it just really jumped at me. I was like, oh, wow, that's neat.
yeah.
Well, thank you. How about Catalog 5, Image 2?
I have image 2. This one was related to another image that I made. Um, it featured maybe 4 or 5 mushroom-shaped structures, just kind of with this massive spiraling rift in the sky. This is the other end of that rift in the sky, of the clouds being blown apart by, well, those were trumpets. But yeah, that's just the other end of that, just a cataclysmic event occurring on the surface of the planet
Oh wow,
and echoing
outstanding.
out into the vast reaches of space to call something forth.
Okay, okay. It reminded me of the painting "The Origin of the World," and this idea of this sort of opening to the universe. And I almost saw the language, the letters that you have there. I almost saw those letters as sort of celebrating or dancing as they were, you know, in a sort of celebratory expulsion from the womb, so to speak. There, but
I see.
uh, yeah. But I
I re-
loved the yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
oh, yeah, I recall the left, well, not the left, the right side of the sigil being that particular meaning was totality. I think it was the other one.
Oh,
Don't remember, but yeah,
okay.
very interesting.
So when you say sigil, that's really fascinating to me. So would you care to elaborate on that? I really I'm fascinated by that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the this is more or less the part where where the language was a little bit more, or at least this constructed language was more structured and had and didn't degrade yet. It had clear meanings as to what each thing was. Each part of a symbol, I guess you could say, related to the different parts of metaforma, or at least the elements of metaforma. And I was just using those particular symbols to convey some sort of concept within the language of metaforma. Um, yeah, that's about all I can say there. I call them sigils just to maybe make a more clear connection to the fictional aspects of the world, because I also think that these are symbols that existed within the world itself too, that people were able to freely use. But yeah.
Outstanding. That's outstanding. So forgive me. So I've got this question here, and I'm having a hard time putting it into words. So these are some things that I feel like your art and our talk today is really it's really helping me think about these things and inspiring me to think about them going forward. So I really appreciate that. This idea of the it's hard for me to put this in words, but so as there is this event of inspiration, and that the event of inspiration has some sort of sigil or some sort of linguistic element to it, and that then the further you get from that event, the more the sigil, the more the language returns to that original linguistic state. Is that something that you would resonate with? That you think that's is that kind of what's going on here in the art?
That's how it turned out. Yeah, that's a very good description of what's going on.
I hadn't really thought of that before, and I'm thinking, but that seems to make sense. I mean, if you're talking about these descriptions of flows and becomings and things like that, I'm thinking, well, that does quite possibly seem to be the case with language as well. That's really outstanding.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Brandon. What about I saw this one. I think that you described this in your description. You said that this made you think of, well, I can't remember how you said it now, but that you invoked the concept of graphic design with this one. This is catalog 4, image 10, and I felt the same way, that this could absolutely be like a movie poster or a CD, an album cover or something.
Yeah. Yeah, this one, what is this one? I could say it try to elicit that idea, or an idea of what evil is in this fictional world of
Interesting.
people just sort of stumbling upon something ancient that was buried long ago for good reason,
Okay.
and they took it upon themselves to unearth it for some reason, and here it is. Yeah.
Nice, nice. What when I look at this and I see that the sigils are in red, what is that? Can you talk about the decision making process that went into that, or the symbolic value of that for you?
Yeah, looking at it now, I feel like it might be a name, or to indicate that it's a name. Something that, well, because this world took place in a kind of, well, I guess the basic substance of this fictional world is paper and ink, just to create that sort of you know, sort of contrast, and also have to have a kind of substance within the world itself, something to manipulate. The presence of colors makes or it elicits the idea that something is otherworldly, or something that was not conceived by how the inhabitants of that world thought the world to operate. So it's something, anything that with color tends to be anything that is not man-made, you could say, or something that has not been categorized by language properly or very well. So it's
That's neat.
yeah, that's about all I can say
That's
about
neat.
that.
I like
But
that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. That's awesome. Thank you. Let's see here. So I'm looking at catalog 4. Every time I try to say catalog, I also start to say the word category. It's like, it's funny. I'm like saying two words simultaneously. I don't know what's happening to me. So,
Yep.
does your art have that effect on people often? Does it?
It has an effect on me, that's for sure. I mean, I've typed the word causality so many times that if I try to type the word casual, it comes out causal.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm like that when I'm reading it too. Sometimes I'm like, I read something and then I'll say, "There's no way that said that." And I look back and I'm like, "Oh, that's right, it didn't." Yeah. Let's see. So this is catalog 4, image 8. What would you say? So this made me, the first thing that jumped into my mind was the word turbulence, and I don't know why. But what sort of thoughts do you have on this one?
Yeah, this one. This yeah, this was closer to the a fictional exploration, I guess, and it was to convey a kind of blood transfusion, or of in putting ink into something as an experiment. Um, and that did have it has other fictional implications too. But yeah, that's kind of what it just what it is. Just transfusion of some sort of fluid into a another fluid, into a bypassing into a membrane, or perhaps even into a vein. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did this have a specific place in the narrative of the fictional world?
It was to, I think, give context to a particular creation within that world, a particular character, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Um, just a person that sort of just embodied both the concept of paper and ink, of something that is material and steady and stable, and something that is fluid and ever changing, and perhaps even considered chaotic and not necessarily evil, but just bad, I guess.
Interesting. Okay.
Not wanted. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. And I want to ask you this because I keep forgetting to ask you this, but so how would you characterize yourself as an artist? Like, I mean, I want to, that's a very broad question on purpose. I mean, I could narrow that down for you if you wanted, but I'd like to hear what your response to that question is first.
Ah, man. Genres are something that I've always struggled with.
Mhm,
Even today,
mhm.
I don't quite know what it is that I'm doing,
That's
but I'm
great.
just
That's
doing
great.
it. But I don't know. I even take issue with the term artist at times,
Do
or
you
rather,
really?
I guess seasonally, I tend to take issue with it. But um, I cannot say. I guess, I mean, people have been calling, at least lately, just a philosophical artist. It's like, okay, sure, I guess that works. It's
I
it's a
like
bit
that.
messy of a way of categorization, but sure, I'll take it.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate that. And I'm super fascinated by how you would take issue with the word artist, right? Because I feel like I can resonate with exactly what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like it feels like the word artist is difficult to take issue with, even though I resonate with what you're saying. But so I'd love to hear how you take issue with the word artist, like what you feel as though is problematic with the word artist. But in terms of even just medium, though, right? I mean, you would say, is there a particular medium that you identify with or that you tend toward?
Yeah, medium wise, yeah, digital. I'm definitely just a digital artist in that sense, or at least
Oh, okay.
primarily. Yeah,
Okay.
I can do traditional stuff, of course. That's where most people start anyway. But it's yeah, most of my stuff is digital. I cannot foresee it changing because I
Okay.
like the digital medium quite a bit because of all of the different things that you can do with digital medium or within the digital medium. You can make visual images, of course, and you can also do audio stuff as well. It's you can do a lot with the senses, or at least with just the eyes and ears, I guess. Time will tell if you can start doing other things with other senses, but or beyond touch, I suppose. But yeah, primarily digital. As for why I don't like the term artist, it makes me I get very, I guess, in a way, anal about what I would choose to name myself. Whenever I think of the word, whenever I consider the identity of artist, I think of someone that very much enjoys the process through and through of making stuff, or at least just creating stuff. And I would say that I'm not entirely. I don't entirely like drawing that much. It's just something that I do. I describe it as just a language that I can speak, and I've been fluent with it since I was about 2. So
That's
I
awesome.
just I
Yeah.
just speak the language, and um, I can't say that it's particularly enjoyable for me. It's about as enjoyable as talking is, I suppose. But
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Well, so I actually feel like I resonate with you on this because this is why for a long time now, I've been saying, uh, identity in and of itself is already secondary. Like, it seems so. It's like all this fighting about, identity, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you're missing the point. Identity is secondary. Yeah, yeah, that's excellent. Well, are these? I look, I cannot draw. So is this charcoal? Is that what this is?
this is all it's all digital,
Oh,
digital ink of
this
sorts.
is digital. This was all
Yeah,
digital.
I specifically tried to make it so that in the process reflected what it was like when I was primarily working with pencil and charcoal. Because that was my medium of choice. It was I was able to correct my mistakes. But
Mm.
yeah, I just tried to make it so that the process felt familiar, and that's how this sort of style arose. Yeah.
Wow, that is brilliant. I can't even now. It seems even more complicated to me, and than before, because I'm just like, wow, I don't know how you accomplished some of these features. When I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, okay, well, you just sort of blurred that with your thumb or something. But now I'm thinking, wow, I have no idea how you accomplished that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, well, so this is catalog for image 3. What would you like to share about this one?
Yeah, this one, yeah, I guess, going further and further back, it's more and more about the fiction. But yeah, this one,
Okay.
more tunneling and burrowing. Curiously, they're using, well, I guess excavators are using ink, a fluid-like substance or a chaotic substance to tunnel into the heart of something. Or maybe it's, no, no, no. I think it was, yeah. things being pulled out of this center. It was a kind of heart being, extracting a fluid out of well, the heart itself, and using it to
Interesting.
power other nefarious things. So it implies machinery, I guess you could say. But yeah.
Okay. Okay. It made me think of almost in that one image of the city, um, with the tentacles underneath the city, as you were saying, that it made me think of this rhizome at the heart of it. This
Yep.
this underground, right? The word territory keeps coming to mind, but I'm trying to think of say, like terrestrial underground. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's excellent. Wow. So what about this is making me so is this fictional story available anywhere? Because
Not beyond the catalogs, no.
okay, because it's
I
really now
didn't.
you're
Yeah,
really
I did
making
add
me
writing.
interested in this story. I'm like, what's going on? Why are they drilling underground? And what are they doing with what nefarious
Drilling.
thing? Right. What nefarious thing are they doing with this energy? That's great.
I can't remember how I did whenever I do fictional projects like this, I tend to have I visualize all of it and then I just blitz through all of the creation. And when I'm done with, blitzing through all of it, I tend to not know what else to do with it because, it wasn't intended to go further than what I envisioned. But I think it all concluded at catalog 6. Everything else afterwards probably wasn't necessarily relevant to it. So, if you were to look into it, yeah, everything would probably be found in catalogs 1 through 6, I think. But
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
it's a very it was quite something.
That's
I don't know.
outstanding. That's outstanding. Um, Yeah, I've lost it. I pulled up the other image, and now I'm meditating on this one. Forgive me.
Where does
Oh,
this
that's
one fit?
yeah. Well, no, that's great. No, that's what I was going to say. I remember now. It's funny that you use the word blitzing because I was like that. That's exactly how I would describe my philosophical process as well. Is it's just there's these stages of like lining things up, and so it's like I feel like I'm spending. Sometimes I become fatigued in that stage of just constantly lining things up, right? And it's just like, come on, when do I get to the blitz? When do I get to the blitz, right? And then it's like once I get it all lined up, then I just go like a madman through it. I really really appreciate that description. So how long did it take you to produce all of this?
Oh man. Let me see. This was well, let's see. So, I think this was all done in about a month.
Wow. That is
Yeah,
a
probably
blitz.
less.
That
I
is a
don't
blitz.
think I tend to not spend. I want to avoid spending a lot of time on personal artworks,
Wow.
because all of these were personal. It's like, yeah, I think each one took like 1 or 2 hours each. Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
it's
When
also why
you
I like sticking with the digital medium because traditionally, if I were to try to do this traditionally, it would take like 3 or 4 times the amount of time that it would take to finish, anything digitally. And I just want to get the result out and move on to the next one because I gotta I have an idea that I want to
Yes.
just that I have a full broad span of things that need to be done, so I need to
Yeah,
get it
amen.
finished.
Amen. I'm always chasing this idea. I'm chasing it. Yeah.
Yep.
It's always new. It's always new. Well, what forgive me, I'm being flooded over here now. Oh, why? This is just a practical kind of question. I was expecting the opposite, and so I was just wondering if you could help me understand because I think I can't really fully understand this. I would think that, and maybe I'm just way off base on this, but I was thinking that the digital would take longer. But why is it that the digital is faster? I mean, in terms of I mean, I guess everybody thinks digital is faster, but I don't know. I just thought that the digital would take longer.
Yeah. So with pencil and charcoal, well, pencil, you're doing these small, tiny, thin strokes to try and fill out a space. Maybe if you have, a stick of graphite, you can like run the side along a larger span and like use your thumb, shade things in. Maybe you can do that charcoal. It's a little bit easier to manipulate. But if you, if you make mistakes, as I am, prone to do, it'll take a lot of time to find the, well, you probably have the eraser next to you. Say that you have the eraser next to you. You grab it. You have to like scrub things off, make sure that it's clean enough so that it looks like it's still like the simple, background paper that is untouched. And then you gotta go back in there, add things back in, things like that. It gets, it makes it so that the time spent on the piece just starts, steadily accumulating because you're in the moment, because, it's an analog process. You can very much, get really locked in on, on all of that. You will lose track of time very easily, but, not to say that you can't do that with digital, but, with digital, it's like, you have the ability to take, you can just make the stroke size or the mark making size as large as you want it to be, and then you just cover the whole page, and then it's like you can like carve out here and there, make the sizes a little bit larger, carve out things here, and if you have a sense on how shapes and forms and values work, you can very, very quickly create a very decently rendered thing very, very quickly compared to analog, or at least I can, I suppose, because I'm used to the tools and all of that. But
sure,
and with the setup that I have right now, or at least the setup I have in the software, I only use like a small handful of brushes, like maybe 2 or 3 that I cycle between, and that can make the process a lot faster too. Because I think in the past when I made colored painterly images, I was cycling through like dozens of different brushes to try and capture a particular look, and that made things not too much better in terms of a traditional. But then again, mixing paint also can be very time consuming too, and I don't want to do that. So
sure. So this is on some kind of surface. I mean, is this there still is like a digital pen on a surface that you're using, or?
Yeah, I use a graphics tablet.
Perfect. Okay, I wondered. If you didn't want to tell us, I didn't want to ask. But that's outstanding. That's outstanding. I've never used one. But so that's the other reason why I was thinking. Well, if you're using a mouse and a cursor here, I can't imagine how.
I mean, with the setup I have, I can totally use just a mouse and that too. And I whenever I want to make like quick sketches or whatever, I use a mouse because it's way faster than like pulling out the tablet, dragging it around in front of me, getting the pencil.
Interesting.
I've grown adept with the mouse.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Yeah. Well, you had said, it's funny because you were talking about when we're sort of lining things up, and this feeling of like, I want to get to the next stage in this process, this artistic process. Like, I feel like the older I get and the longer that I've been doing this, the more that really creeps in, right? So it's like when I'll come across a concept and I'll be like, I'm going to have to address that too, right? And then I think, oh no, and I find myself tracking as I go off then to like think about this other idea, and I'm like, I don't want to be thinking about this idea. I want to be thinking about this idea. Yeah, it's just, it starts to sort of be noise in the signal. But that's excellent. How about, so this is, we've only got a few left here. We've got catalog 3 and image. This is image 9. This has an uncanny resemblance to my astrologer. So I thought, what's going on with this one?
Well, let's see. This one, 3. Yeah, this one. Yep, more fiction. It's a character within this world that is, I guess in a way, she is someone that is able to make these paper-like entities, which is what she's kind of nursing in her hands there. Now they're not entirely made of they're not entirely made of paper. They're probably some sort of strange offshoot substance of sorts, but it's Yeah, it's just the conveyance of motherhood perhaps in this sort of world. This particular character, or at least I guess the race or species that she happens to be, is probably looked down upon. That's what I was envisioning, I think, at the very least. Um, yeah, there's I don't think there's much else I can say about it without evoking another image or two that I've made of this one, where I mean, you'll probably be able to find it, but it's this large snake-like entity or worm-like entity, just sort of bundled up in this cave, and there's a figure down there at maybe the head of it, just sort of maybe reaching out. Can't quite recall, but yeah, that is the same character. And then there's another instance of these I guess you can still call it like these appendages just sort of reaching down from the heavens and creeping down into this crater of sorts. Same character. But yeah, it's continuity, I guess you could say, with that one. Yeah.
Wow. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. It really spoke to me. I thought it was excellent. Let's see. So we got two left. So category again, catalog. By the time I'm done, I'm still not going to have it right. Yeah, I'm just going to keep saying it over again. So catalog 3, image 4. Yeah.
Yep,
What this? Yeah.
So let me see. I mean, 4 and 2 are interrelated. This is when
Okay.
I think I was coming off of a forma here
Okay.
when I was making these. That does sound about right. I don't know, but I was thinking about how the world could be structured, and at the time it was this sort of grid-like place where things are just traveling along a grid or things
Okay.
like that. Sort of a Cartesian sort of way of looking at the world, but it's yeah, that's about it. I mean, this one was maybe trying to pinpoint that you can have these aggregate atom-like structures within this grid place, or at least maybe not necessarily atom-like, but maybe even cellular, or
Okay.
yeah, no, yeah, probably cellular, just moving along in this grid and kind of a stochastic, random quantum process. Or I don't like using the word quantum; it's a buzzword now, but even still, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's outstanding. That's outstanding. So you say that one relates to catalog 3, image 2.
Yes,
Okay.
and to bridge the connection there, the entity here, or the person here, kind of is just this acolyte, or maybe even a scientist, of someone that understands the grid and is able to project forward forms from the grid itself in order to
Heavy.
shape reality.
Heavy. Yeah.
And yeah, that's the extent of that.
So
Yep.
this makes me I really love that description. Thank you for that. So this makes me think of Francis Bacon, right? And especially Deleuze's discussion of Francis Bacon. I mean, just some of these dynamic, like a static image that is somehow able to convey dynamisms and that type of thing. Yeah. Plus, I think since it's involved with the head, that it kind of is also there's so much of the Bacon stuff that makes me that talks about or illustrates that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This is outstanding. What about, so when you say, do you have a particular, I want to say a word to you. I want you to tell me if this has a particular meaning for you, or if that somehow this is something that you're working with this as a sort of concept, and that is this idea of the triptych, right? Like I thought that I saw it involved with your movie Desire, and I'm wondering if with some of these images, I mean, is that something that's this idea of a triptych?
Yeah. So the the start of all of this, since it's all kind of interrelated, right? The start of all of it came with the idea of the astral triptych. That's kind of what desire was, or at least it was the beginning of it. Desire was the beginning of the astral triptych. It was the first part. It was called desire. The second part was going to be called the becoming, and the third part was going to be called transcendent. And you know,
Yeah.
put all together, it would be desire becoming transcendent. It would read off as a sort of sentence. And at the time when I was thinking about, composing the astral triptych, it was becoming was going to be some sort of animation. And but then I realized how much I didn't like, animation. There was, I've grown so distant from making it. I just couldn't really stomach doing it anymore. So that's when it became Metaforma over time. Because the name didn't match anymore, because Metaforma wasn't called Becoming. It was just the astral triptych as a holistic, large spanning project just sort of collapsed in on itself and became something else. But the end of Metaforma, I would say, does allude to the third part, which is transcendent, and it is, to be outside of the process of just constantly trying to figure things out and being in your head of sorts. And I guess everything else that comes after Metaforma
Mhm.
is transcendent. Um, I did want to, and it's like I did envision for every single part to be in some part fictional, but as time went on, I found that to be kind of untenable. It didn't really work out that way, because my brain can't really, or at least it's unwilling to branch too far away from the categories that I've mapped out for myself here.
Sure.
So, yep.
Okay. Wow, that's
It seems like,
outstanding.
yeah, I can't really change the fabric of my own cognition. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yep.
Wow. Wow, that's excellent. Uh, this makes me think of back to some of the things that we initially said. Uh, so desire is tied up with desire is involved with the origin, and this idea of transcendence is in some way this capacity to reflect upon desire and becoming, but the reflection is incapable of understanding this primordial language of desire. Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah, pretty fair. Because desire did seem like it's like, in order to answer where desire came from, I would have to like trace my entire existence back to birth, and probably, and
Yeah.
necessarily everything else before that too. And it's like, there's no way. I can't really comprehend where it came from. It just sort of happened.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is great. That is great. I find that this resonates so well with Aristotle. I would say that Aristotle just has there's a few things in Aristotle that seem to stop him from being able to stay with the flow of it. But I mean, he wants to get into ontological categories, and then develop essences out of these ontological categories or something. But I don't think that these worldviews are necessarily incommensurable. I think that they're not. There's not an either or here. I think that what you're saying is you really are developing a metaphysics of tracing these flows, tracing these desires back, and it's clear that the desires are there. I mean, so it should be doable. Is what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that does seem to be the direction that my ideas are going at the moment too. I'm I'm out of the season of where I'm like kind of doing any new philosophical thinking. That tends to happen at around summer. So
Interesting.
there'll
Yeah,
probably be updates in that direction soon enough. But yeah, the paradigm is changed this past summer, and now it's kind of stabilized. But we'll see if anything breaks. in a
Wow.
few months. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. That's outstanding. Well, I tell you, Branden, I I would love to hear, I've been thinking about this. Maybe you're already doing it, but I was thinking, wow, if I had the ability to draw like you can draw, that, this project that you're currently working on, that if you were to, and maybe you're already doing this, but if you were to keep a journal of the influences that are happening, because I got a feeling this deck, the deck that you're constructing, I've got a feeling that what a powerful project this is going to be, and I just feel like I mean, everything we've been talking about already, but this idea of like the communication that is influencing the illustration, I just find all of that to be so fascinating. So
Yeah, and I'm working with someone that is way more entrenched in the symbolic than I am. For me, I'm just kind of like an observer. Well, obviously, perhaps, but I'm just sort of on the outskirts, just kind of observing like how all of these things interplay. Because I'm not really in that world. I'm like right up against it, but it's like it's entirely foreign to me. Or I get
interesting.
it, but I can't really, I can't be in it. It's hard for me to be in it. But
How
yeah,
interesting.
working with someone is like that is really fascinating. And she does seem to really appreciate the way that these images sort of just unfold. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'd like to ask you, when you say symbolic, so what I hear you saying is like this world of interpretation, and again, I keep thinking though that like the world of becoming is more primordial than the world of interpretation. And then I want to say that the world of interpretation, that is governed by hermeneutics, in the sense that there are all these different styles and structures of interpretation that can be then almost played like a card game or something, but can be played in terms of how to interpret the primordial becoming. But I can understand also this when I listen to these astrologers talk, and I approach this from the point of view of Platonic philosophy and the ancient Greeks. But when I listen to these astrologers talk, I immediately feel as though I'm missing out in some deep way. And I also feel like they're calculating. So it's like I feel like I'm sitting around calculating with the number 3, and I'm like, wow, I'm doing such a great job. And then I look at them and they're over there calculating with the number 12, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't even get close to it. Yeah. So I can appreciate what you're saying. Yeah.
That is exactly how I feel. It's like
That's great.
I don't. It's like what the conclusions that they come to are like, wow, that's really good. That's accurate, and it speaks to my experience to the T right now. It's crazy how accurate that is and how consistent it is. I can't comprehend how I could even wield such a thing.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Yep.
Different preferences. Well, not just preferences, but cognitive behaviors and affinities, if you will. Yeah. Everyone has their own powers of sorts in that way, and I guess philosophy would be ours.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Well, I tell you, if the opportunity ever comes, I mean, I am just absolutely, caught in an avalanche of work over here. But if the opportunity ever arises for us to have more talks like this, or if the opportunity ever arises for us to do some kind of philosophical and artistic thing, a collaboration or something together, I think that it would be wonderful. I think it would be we could come up with something really excellent and beautiful too. So hey, I'm open to it if that ever comes up in the future. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. What was I going to say? Oh, I have been planning for a long time. I intended to already be doing it, of course, but I'm not yet. But I really want to take a look at Deleuze's Francis Bacon book. And so, it's going to be, I've been thinking about the analog digital distinction anyway, and just talking about artistic stuff. And so if when that comes out, I have to, it's going to be a while at this point, I think, because I just can't get caught up. But when that does come out, I will try to remind you or send you a link, because I would love to hear your take on it, or hear if you have any thoughts on it. So
sure, yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I'm going to leave links to your other interviews as well, if that's okay with you, in the description.
Sure.
I thought they were great, and it'll help people get a deeper understanding of your work and stuff. So
that sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, please do keep me in the loop, and I'm following you and all your social media stuff, and so as you produce these new works, and I don't know if the person that you're working on this deck for is willing to allow other people to see the deck, but I would love to see it, because I already know that it's going to be really powerful.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to be released. She does intend for it to be a public thing that people can just buy, but yeah, it's going to be pretty good. That much I can say. Yep.
Nice. You say she does intend that?
Yeah, she does intend. Yep.
So it will be for sale.
Freely available to purchase. Yes.
Outstanding. Okay. Well, that's really excellent. So, okay. Well, hey, is there anything that that you want to share in any parting words for the folks listening?
Just check out my stuff. I have plenty of stuff made, and I will no doubt be making more. That's
awesome.
About all I can say.
Awesome. And I'll put the link to the movie that you made in there as well. And one of the things that really struck me, I thought the movie was excellent in so many different ways. It was visually stunning, but I really appreciated the soundtracking as well. And you did all that on your own?
I edited everything. Some of my illustrations are thrown in there too, but a lot of it is stock images, stock footage, and stock audio. Yeah.
But you're the one who put it together. Well, coming from somebody who does this, regularly as well, I was like, well, that was well done. It really was well done. So excellent. Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you so much, Branden. It was a real pleasure to talk with you today, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. I wish you all the success, and I hope we get a chance to talk again in the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Hey, you take care. Have a great 2025. Thank you.
You do the same, man.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.